Welcome back, everyone. Yes, it's the Better Divorce Podcast. And you know me, I'm the host of the Better Divorce Podcast, Paulette Rigo, CEO and founder of the Better Divorce Academy, author of #1 best-selling book, audiobook, and online course, The Better Divorce Blueprint, and yes, of course, the podcast. Today, we're going to have a unique conversation about military divorce and a few other things. So welcome Kirk Stange. He's the president and founding partner of Stange Law Firm, the nation's second largest divorce and family law practice. Who knew? Since starting the firm in 2007, he's expanded it to 30 offices across 9 states, helping clients navigate, yes, life's most challenging family matters. Kirk has also received recognition for his legal accomplishments, including being named one of the super lawyers honoree by Super Lawyers of Missouri and Kansas since 2015. Thank you for giving me your time, Kirk. Such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Well, I like to bring experts in their fields to be like a walking encyclopedia. I know we don't have those anymore, but I like old school terms about your wisdom and experience because everybody is Googling or chat GPTing and
Right.
researching to death until 2 in the morning or beyond because there's so much fear and overwhelm with divorce. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, oh gosh, years ago, because I wanted to give people help. So, why in God's earth would you want to be a family law attorney? What made you be that person that said, I'm going to do this? So, were you that 8-year-old kid that said, I'm going to be a family law attorney? How did this happen?
No, no, it was a big accident. I didn't have any intention of doing it even when I went to law school. I thought I'd maybe get involved in politics or do constitutional law or something like that. I mean, that was kind of my goal and aspiration coming out. But I worked at a general practice firm at my first job coming out of law school. Then there was one partner that did family law. And he went out on medical leave when I was a pretty young lawyer. And so they said, Kirk, we need you to handle all of his cases while he's out. And he was out for a little bit. And, I started doing it, and clients seemed happy with what I was doing, the services I was providing. People started referring more and more cases to me, and it just kind of happened. It was not my goal at all.
It fell in your lap.
It did. I mean, I think it was what I was meant to do, and at times in life things happen for a reason. But I took family law in law school. I wasn't that interested in it. It wasn't anything I thought I would do, but yeah, it just happened by accident. And I think the interpersonal piece, came pretty easy for me. Dealing, talking with people. I like being in court. And so, when you're doing family law, you're in court a lot. I mean, me doing transactional kind of law, sitting at a desk would have been a challenge for me. But yeah, it was a big accident. Nothing I ever would have thought I was going to do when I went to law school.
So it suits your personality because I talk to a lot of lawyers with being a mediator and a divorce coach. And I think it takes a toll on some of them. Maybe the demeanor and the work didn't match, and they're just in it because it's what they do. And I do see some of them wanting to switch over to another type of practice because it can be a little bit more gut wrenching for those that maybe absorb or empathic. Um, and kind of take on the emotional
Right.
side of the divorce. So it does take a certain personality to be able to handle that.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, it is hard. I mean, for me, I've seen clients get wonderful results, and you go to court and you feel like you've done a great job. And if you've done this long enough, you'll see a client that you think should have came out better, and they didn't, and that can make it really difficult. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that interpersonal relationship. Um, I mean, that's hard. I mean, I never did it perfectly. I mean, the early parts of my career doing family law, I mean, I had my doubts whether I wanted to keep doing it. But yeah, I mean, over and over time, you get better and better. I think if you're responsive to your clients, you're calling back, you're emailing back, you show a lot of empathy so they know that you care. then I think that can carry you through in this field. If as a lawyer, the clients don't feel like you care, that you're worried about their scenario, then it can be a very challenging area of the law. I don't know. Also have a teaching degree, was my undergrad degree. Yeah, I
Mm.
have a 7th through 12th grade social studies teaching degree. I think that helped me to kind of learn how to educate my clients about the process, about the laws, how things worked. And so I think that turned out to be helpful to me as well in terms of trying to break down what is complex to most people into a scenario where at least they could kind of wrap their arms around and understand how it worked.
I can see how that teaching degree may have helped you build your compassion muscles. And
Yeah,
because teaching is all about breaking down a complex theory or a complex task or body of knowledge into small, digestible, bite sized pieces. And if you have that skill and or desire to be able to break it down for someone, it does take some patience and persistence, um, with a client who isn't familiar, particularly with the lawyer speak and the Latin terms and the order
right,
and the process. And wait, why are you making me do this? And how come I have to fill out this? And
right,
what business is it of anybody's of that? Like, there can be a lot of uh, upset when somebody feels like this is intrusive and personal. And by the way, there's nothing more intrusive or personal than divorce. Well,
100%.
maybe giving birth. As a doula,
Yeah, right,
I might want to just interject with that, but that's for maybe from a
right.
woman's point
Yeah,
of view. Although
yeah,
from being a dad and having a baby, and it's a rather intimate event in one's life, right?
sure.
But I'm curious, because one of the big complaints I hear as a divorce coach when I'm working with one of the parties through a divorce case that can be, well, even the simple ones can be emotional, and naturally they should be because it's your life. But one of the complaints I hear is that they don't hear from their attorney enough,
Right.
right? They never answer the phone. They don't
Yeah,
answer my emails. I hear from this, the receptionist, the secretary, the paralegal, the law clerk, the whatever other title they have. But I it's so frustrating, and they feel unheard, unseen, unvalidated, unprepared, uneducated about that. So it makes me happy that I of course like to recommend attorneys to my
right.
clients, because one of the first things they ask me is, who should I hire if they're going to
Sure.
litigate, right? Like, and I was like, whoa, well, where do you live? Number one, right? Because I
Right, right,
all over the country. So that's number one, right? Because they're location driven.
right.
But then next is like I have to match their personality, right? It's like some people need a lot of hand holding, hugging,
100%.
nurturing. They need teddy bears and blankets and pillows. And the others are
Right,
like, just send me the bill. Tell me what to do. I don't give a crap. Everybody's got a different demeanor.
right.
And that's just, humankind. But that is really important. And do you have any advice for people out there in a way to be more of a credible client so that their attorney wants to respond to them more efficiently?
Yeah, there's a lot of different pieces to it, but I mean, obviously, I think, you can be assertive with your lawyer, and if there's something you're unhappy about, I mean, I think it's fine to voice it, but, doing it in a constructive way, doing it in a non-emotional way can be helpful, versus sending your lawyer an email every day or calling every day, overloading them. If you're able to kind of condense it down, once a week, once a month, I mean, whatever client's comfort level is, but that could be much more effective than, calling and emailing each and every day. Lawyers have a lot of cases and a lot of clients. I think as lawyers can do a better job by maybe taking less cases. I mean, I think a lot of lawyers take so many cases, it's very difficult to call everybody back. So I think as a tip for lawyers, I mean, if you can get higher quality clients and cases and take less cases, I think you'll do a better job. But yeah, I think being emotional, not as emotional, not calling and emailing every day. I mean, I think all of that is important. And yeah, put yourself in the lawyer's shoes. That's very hard for a client. But lawyers have, lives and families and many clients and many cases, and at times it can be frustrating for the client when they're not hearing from the lawyer. But try to keep keep that piece in perspective, I think then leads to better communication with the lawyer as well. Because I mean, lawyers are people too. I know that's hard for clients to always to remember, but lawyers are people too. So if a client is being patient and not overloading them, I think that can go a long way.
Good point. And so are judges. Judges are people
Yeah,
too. We have to be careful with that. It's built into the name of the job they have is judge, right? And why
right,
are they so judgmental? Like, well, that's their, and not all of them. I've been
right,
in court a lot, so some of them have also a great disposition with making eye contact and really listening, and others, I feel like sometimes they're just on their screen or taking notes or checking out, or I love when they lean back and rock sometimes. So
sure, right, right.
the whole thing, we're this isn't a science. We call it the
No,
practice of law, right? It's not just like the practice of medicine. It
right,
is truly more of an art than a science. That's an observation, certainly not a definition, everyone, but you really do have to learn like the creativity side of it. And it's a lot like tetrising, I call it, like matching
right,
somebody, like moving the pieces around like a puzzle to find the right professional for the right job. Very important. And
right,
the right demeanor for you and what it is you need. When you're dealing with a case that can be complicated, you're likely going to need many different professionals.
right,
Obviously, if you're litigating, the judge is a given. An attorney, yes, and not changing attorneys two, three, four. I did have somebody reach out to me, and she had changed attorney 9 times.
oh wow,
That was a little scary, because I said that isn't going to reflect well positively. They're usually not positively. So,
right,
but I usually tell my clients to have two pads of paper. On one pad of paper to write questions for attorney, and on
right,
the second pad of paper, questions for Paulette. And usually the pads of paper are identical. They
right,
usually,
right,
I mean, give or take, maybe not 100%, but 90. And then I address all the questions on questions for Paulette. And then we review the questions for attorney. And some of them may have an overlap, or they usually say, oh, I think you may have answered that. And it's not legal advice. Sometimes it's more of like, what to wear. And, should I
sure,
ask them this? Or it's more like an inquiry or curiosity or confusion, or just knowledge than it is legal procedure or advice or counsel. And then I help them compose the proper email with the questions for attorney and getting it down to a succinct, more likely than not answerable,
right,
credible email instead of an emotional vomit of, forgive the term, but it's a good visual ride of like, blah. So,
right. I
and
get
then
it.
there's also that other question of, questions for mental health practitioner or
Right,
questions for mortgage broker, working with
right,
that one. Because, the lawyer's like, I don't know if you qualify to refinance, like,
right,
that's not my gig, So, and they also make the mistake of going to a mental health practitioner and starting to ask legal questions, or
sure,
using an attorney as a mental health practitioner. And
right,
oh, that's great until you get the six, seven, $8,000 bill, and you go,
right.
WTF just happened. So, yeah, so good to know. And kudos to you for being that wonderful guy that can do that. It's not easy. I have so many friends that are attorneys. I love attorneys. I think they're great people because I like solving problems. And I
Right.
find that I think like, as my attorney said, you think like an attorney. So, I never realized I did until he pointed it out to me. So, but
Right.
I want to shift a little bit to this book that I think happened a while back, but it was if I'm correct, a collaboration between
Correct.
some experts on strategies for military law and navigating family law for the armed forces. So how did this project come about? Because this is a big problem, and the armed forces also have a rather high divorce rate. So tell us about this project. What is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was many years ago, but at my firm, we've got offices over in Belleville, Illinois, which is over by Scott Air Force Base, and so, at our firm, we were getting lots of, clients from that Air Force Base, and we still do, and yeah, I mean, the people that were putting that book together, it's through Aspiratory Publishing, which is, I think it's a subsidiary of Thomson Reuters. I mean, they came to me and asked me to write a chapter for that book, which I did, and it was an honor to do, and I think it provided lots of helpful information from a lot of lawyers on military divorce and family law, and yeah, I think it was helpful to a lot of people and a really great book and something I'm proud that I did.
I love it. I've never seen anything like it, so I'm going to put it in my very large closet here in my office
Yeah.
for resources. So, how does military um, divorce differ from, shall we say, the normal traditional divorce?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could be different. I mean, one, people oftentimes can be served divorce papers and maybe they're away on active service and they're not able to come back and respond to these proceedings. So that can be one of the more striking ways out of the gates. And so service members oftentimes need to get a lawyer to file a motion to have the proceedings delayed until they're able to come back and defend themselves adequately. So, I mean, that would be big issue number one in a lot of instances where people are stationed overseas. And then when you get into their pay and the benefits within the military, that's where things can be very different than a normal divorce where you're dealing with thrift savings plan, or they've got survivor benefit plan, which is much like, life insurance. They also have a pension. And then in terms of the nuances, in terms of how you address those issues in a divorce settlement or a divorce trial can be very unique and very different from other cases.
And do you find that gender has anything to do with it? Because I know in traditional divorce, 73-ish% of divorce is either initiated or filed by women. Do you find that that is the same in the military, or is it different? Is it more male?
I mean, more and more women are joining the military too. So I mean, I think
Yes, yes.
yeah, so I think that disparity over time is tightening up for sure. But yeah, I mean, historically it would be more men in the military, but yeah, over the course of time, more and more women go into the military and going on active duty. So it can, the situation can be applicable to men and women. I mean, in some cases, both parties are members of the military. Maybe that's how they met.
Sure.
So that scenario can be there too.
Yes, I mean, the cases that I have mediated a few military cases, but they typically do have some complex aspects of them
Right,
that are unique to the case, um, particularly if there's deployment and custody issues where they're
right,
not going to be home for 6 months, a year, or longer. Custody is a lot more difficult to determine. Um,
100%.
right? Because how could you possibly pick the child up at school at 3 o'clock on Friday for the weekend, or giving, any stereotypical schedule when you're, 3,000 or 10,000 or however thousand miles away? But
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you definitely in these cases have to construct a custody agreement or parenting plan, whatever it's called, in a particular jurisdiction in a way that accounts for what's going to happen when they're not on active service, and then what's going to happen when they are, in terms of how that's going to work. And yeah, it could definitely make it very, very challenging versus a traditional case where both parties are living in the same locality. When somebody's moving from place to place, maybe they're stationed in various places over the course of time. Yeah, you've got to create these parenting plans to account for those scenarios, which can make it tricky.
and does the military cover any of the costs of it, or is it completely no? That's
I mean, yeah, I mean, they've got, attorneys that typically a service member can go to and they can show the papers and show what they've been served and get some basic advice. But an individual is going to need to hire a private lawyer in the jurisdiction where the case is at. And so again, that can make it quite a bit more difficult. So yeah, you're not going to get a lawyer to come into the military, into the state court. At least I have never seen that. the best you're going to get is some advice on the base or while on active duty in terms of what to do. But yeah, then you still have to find a local attorney.
Yes, even in the corporate world, many people, excuse me, will say to me, "Oh, I have like Legal Shield or ARAG or
Right,
legal benefits through my, excuse me, my voice died, through my company." And they realize that maybe those will not last, depending on how complex the case is, for the duration of the case, right?
right. Yeah, I mean it's a tough piece, and I mean a lot of folks in the military it can be challenging to get an attorney from a financial standpoint, but then it makes it hard to meet people. You're not able to meet them face to face if you're overseas or you're stationed abroad. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of legal shields, or you can do Zoom or virtual consultations with lawyers, but it can make it hard. Another hard piece too is just the signing of documents, having to, I mean, you have to sign a lot of these documents in front of a notary. You're gonna have to overnight them to your attorney, and that piece could make it quite a bit, harder too, just to try to navigate all of that.
So it's more the logistics of the divorce that makes it more cumbersome than perhaps the law.
Well, the logistics for sure make it more cumbersome, and then the logistics. I mean, you referenced the child custody piece, but the benefits that individuals can get if they're in the military long enough can make it quite a bit more challenging too. I mean, computing child support. I mean, typically in a lot of cases you're going to get W-2s and tax returns, and when you're computing child support, then you get into the issue of what's added in and what you got allowances and housing, and do you add that stuff in, do you not add that stuff in, so that can make it more difficult, and that's going to vary based on state in terms of the child support formulas that are being used. But I mean, other big things would be the thrift savings plan, which is kind of like a 401k, if you will, and dividing those kinds of assets could be tricky. And then same with one of the big ones are the pensions. But an individual's got to be in the military long enough to get the pension, and then whether you can have DFAS, furnish, part of the payments to the former spouse, or whether the service member gets it and has to then pay it can be an issue. It's called the 1010 rule. So you get into some unique situations there. Another one's healthcare. If the service member is covered through health insurance, and the former spouse, do they get to continue their coverage with the military after divorce or not? That could be tricky too. So I would say all the benefits and the financial components could make it quite a bit trickier too.
I also see a bit of a mental health component where there can be a bit of added emotion, stress, or turmoil with being engaged in, a very structured lifestyle where you're on a
Right.
base or you're deployed or you're overseas. And some couples have a difficult time adjusting from that lifestyle back to a family where there's, you know, rules, but it's home, so that
Right.
can be very difficult. I've worked with both men and women where that adjustment period between being home and being away and home and away can wreak havoc on the mental health aspect of, gee, when I'm home I'm expected to fill this role, versus when I'm not home I have these roles I am expected to facilitate and live up to. That's a unique situation. A normal divorce that isn't armed services, with a spouse that maybe travels, might have a little bit of that, but it's a longer period of time and a much more regimented, disciplined, structured, dangerous, and in some ways secretive lifestyle too that can be a little bit difficult from the emotional aspect of it, where that may not necessarily be a legal part of it, but how to communicate with each other. That's where I always suggest they do get the right mental health practitioners, and maybe even some couples counseling in there, even through a divorce, because they still, if they do have children, need to co-parent together. And co-parenting in the armed services can be tricky.
Yeah, for sure. And there are the cases too where the people are just apart. I mean, relationships are hard enough when people are together, but if they're apart for long periods of time, that's where a lot of these marriages lead to divorce. Because I mean, just being apart for a long period of time leads to loneliness and some anxiety, and unfortunately, in some instances, can result in people's eyes wandering to other individuals for physical needs or whatever, and that can lead to divorce too. So that piece could be very hard, and you know, those scenarios just being so far apart.
Well, it's so true. There are a lot more layers to it, right? And it's a broader perspective, but also a deeper one because of the distance and the structure of being in the military. Not only with the financial aspects, the health insurance,
Right.
the day to day workings. I have so much respect for military families. It's of course, my father was in the 1940s generation, World War II.
Right.
And my parents got married in the 50s, like didn't everybody. So that
Right.
was my perspective on what the military should be. But it's very different now, very different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah, for sure it is.
Well, I commend you for having the compassion and skill to be able to help those through it. So look at this book, everyone. If you happen to be in the military and perhaps you are facing this strategies for military family law. So in closure, we talked a little bit about why you stumbled into this work, and
Yeah.
having a family of your own, and being able to be that kind of attorney that is accountable and communicative with your clients. But what is the best advice you could give someone who comes to you maybe at the beginning, where they're just starting to think about it and not sure what to do? And I do find that there is a bit of uh, I don't know, digging their heels in, where many people are looking for emotional justice.
Right.
I'm not saying they're looking for a trophy or a blue ribbon, but they feel wronged where their spouse has done them wrong, or they've just sort of checked out, and whether they're not in love anymore, or there's been some secrecy, financial or otherwise. Maybe there's some different forms of abuse or addiction, affairs or abandonment, whatever the issues are, they feel wronged, right? And they're looking for some sort of emotional justice. And it's really difficult for many people to hear that there really isn't emotional justice,
Mm.
and like, well, what do you mean I can't force him to pay for college? What
Right.
do you mean I can't, there's that, but he or she, it isn't always he, everyone. So, um, yeah, there's that's tough. I always say, blaming it on Alanis Morissette, but it's a jagged little pill to swallow. If you know
Right.
the song,
I
or
know
the
it. Yeah.
album that came out in the 90s with that, but that is a hard, pill to swallow when you realize, um, when somebody, not to say that some behavior isn't taken into consideration with some settlements, but for the most part, emotional justice isn't really a part of divorce. So, how do you, as an attorney, give them that jagged little pill? How do you talk them through that? I'm always curious.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably go for hours on this topic, but I know I can't. But I mean, I think, developing the right mindset is, I think, very important. And I think, being hopeful that your life is only going to get better, that things happen in life for a reason. And while this is a jagged pill now, just having, I think the mindset that, okay, this happened and I didn't want it to happen, but things will be better. Life will go on. And I know that's hard for a lot of people in the moment. And I think to get there, people need to do a lot of different things. It's different for different people. But you mentioned mental health and counseling and therapy. I think most people going through these kinds of cases could definitely benefit from that. Counseling therapy, I think a very good thing. I think putting podcasts like this, other hopeful, optimistic uh, reading podcasts, I mean, information in your brain every day, I think is vital when going through a case like this. It'll put you um, in the right mindset. And then, another thing which I can be very hard, but not making the case your whole life. I mean, you've got to still move on with your life. You've got to still enjoy the things you enjoy. Obviously, do productive things, not unproductive things like alcohol and drugs in the middle of divorce. That's not going to help you out. Um, but you've got to, have the ability to kind of say, okay, I've done what I can on this case today, and you're going to hit the pause button, and you're going to get out and do things you enjoy, and that'll make these kinds of cases go a lot better for anybody going through them versus just sort of obsessing all day long, thinking about it. It's like the computer hourglass spinning. So get out and enjoy and do the things that you like to do, and try to take your mind off these cases as much as possible as well.
I call it the spinning wheel of death, that little
Yeah,
computer hourglass. Yeah. It just
terrible.
like you don't know why it's still spinning, but it's spinning
You
and
can't.
catastrophizing, ruminating, obsessing, all of those things. And research is good, but at what point do you have to say, I've read the books, I've listened to YouTube, I've
Right,
listened to 15 experts on whatever topic. And now I just have to take that knowledge, turn it into wisdom, and move forward. And a lot of that has to do with getting past the stages of grieving. Once you
right.
get to surrender and letting go and acceptance. But now it's what is the lesson? Because I'm the one professional in everyone's life that doesn't want a repeat client.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I mean
I'm
it's
sure
all
you
good stuff.
feel better.
Well, we get repeat clients, unfortunately. I mean, people come back on modifications and motions for
Sure.
contempt.
But I mean, like a second, third, fourth divorce, like,
I've
hmm.
had it. I've had it. But yeah, right. People should be careful before just jumping in. But I've had many clients do it.
Well, 85% of divorced people are remarried within 5 years, Kirk. So there's your statistic for you.
I remember getting a guy divorced, and he came driving to my office a couple weeks later with the new girlfriend. They're going to Vegas to do it again, right away. I mean, I know a lot of people do that. They ought to. There's nothing wrong with getting remarried. I mean, for some people, you find the right person, okay. But yeah, you definitely don't want to, if you've gone through one nasty divorce, people should think long and hard before going through it again.
Yes, when I was a birth doula, I always did a 6 week postpartum. And now that I'm a divorce professional, there goes divorce again. I do a similar thing. But I always
Right,
remind them, you told me that you'd never date again. When I say, when I say to them, you know that 85% of divorcing people will remarry within 5 years. And I just want to let you know that's a statistic. And they go, oh, that'll never be me. And
right.
okay. Because
Well,
it is a very accurate depiction.
I mean, some people might think about it, more and more people doing commitment ceremonies. I mean, being together, being in a committed relationship, and just not walking down the aisle. I mean, if people are going to have kids, they're not really saving themselves as much because if they split up, they could be fighting over custody of those kids. But if people are done having kids and they're looking for companionship, there's ways too, to if you're worried about, inheritance and stuff like that, you can put the significant other on the will, and you can make each other TOD and POD on accounts, and you don't necessarily have to get remarried. I know for a lot of people, and I think you're right. That statistic's right. Most do, but there is a potential alternative for some if they don't want to go through that again.
And prenups and postnups serve a purpose too.
Yeah, well, I wrote a book on prenuptial agreements too, called Prenuptial Agreements Line by Line. So I'm a big believer in that. It can take almost every issue off the table, minus child custody and child support. So yeah, for folks if they're going to get remarried, definitely think about a prenup.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this. And I hope everyone will go to your website to learn more if you are interested in finding out more about Kurt and his work. What's the best way for people to learn more about you?
Yeah, our webpage, if you just go to familylawrepresentation.com, that'll redirect you to our webpage, stangelawfirm.com. And then the phone number is toll free, 855-805-0595.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kirk. I'm really glad that we had this conversation. I hope this has been helpful for people. And don't suffer. Don't go it alone. Make sure you get the help, the education, and the support you need. Until next time, promise to make it better. I'll see you soon.